By the time my daughter asked whether I had sold our family for money, 600 people had already seen the photograph. It filled the screen above the stage at the Firefighters Children Fund Gala. Vivian Hale was kneeling beside Sophie, tying her shoe. I stood behind them in uniform. Across the bottom, someone had added a caption. City contractor used single father to influence public bid. The ballroom went silent. Sophie sat in a blue dress, clutching the red emergency card she had made at school. My dead wife's name was still on the first line. Vivian's number was beneath it. Grant Keller reached the microphone first. Vivian's former fiancé now backed her chief rival for the city contract. No one is questioning Captain Mercer's service, he said. We are asking whether a vulnerable child was used to influence a public bid. Vulnerable. Not grieving. Not frightened. Not 8 years old. A reporter turned toward me.
Tell us about the
Captain,
timeline of the intervention.
did Miss Hale become involved with your daughter before or after her company entered the bidding process? Vivian rose, but her attorney touched her arm. If she defended me, they would call it interference. If she stayed silent, Grant would own the room. Sophie crossed the ballroom and held up the card. I wrote her name. Grant smiled gently. Of course you did, sweetheart. The words sounded kind. They told 600 people my daughter was too young to understand how she had been used. Sophie looked at me. Dad, did you let Miss Vivian use us because we needed money? Every answer could hurt someone I loved. Then Vivian spoke. Daniel, do not apologize for something you did not do. By midnight, the clip would freeze a multi-million-dollar contract. By the end of the week, my career would be under investigation. But the real damage began 2 days later, when I signed a statement Grant would use as proof that Vivian had manipulated my daughter. I knew the sentence was not true. I signed it because I thought betraying her was the only way to protect her. 6 weeks earlier, Vivian Hale was only the woman next door. At 12:14 on a wet Thursday night, she walked into Station 7 carrying Sophie's red school card. My crew had just returned from a warehouse fire near the river. The building was empty except for a security guard who had gone back inside for his dog. We got both of them out. I was at the apparatus bay sink, scraping soot from my knuckles, when Lieutenant Cruz appeared in the doorway. Captain, you've got company. Nobody visited a fire station after midnight with good news. Vivian stood near the duty desk in a charcoal coat darkened by rain. One hand held the card. The other rested on the shoulder of my sleeping daughter. Sophie was curled across 2 vinyl chairs under a station blanket, wearing her school uniform and 1 pink sock. My chest tightened. What happened? She's fine.
She's had a low fever all day.
The school called every
she's
number
just
they
been
had.
So exhausted.
I crossed the room
understand.
and touched
I'll get her
Sophie's
checked out
forehead.
now.
Warm, not burning. Why are you here?
She put her number here,
Vivian glanced at the
replacing
card.
another.
Your daughter put my number where her mother's used to
And
be.
you think that's not...
The compressor cycled in the bay. A radio murmured from dispatch. Cruz stopped moving in the kitchen. I took the card. Hannah Mercer was still printed on the first line in my handwriting from 4 years earlier. Relationship. Mother. Status. Deceased. The school had asked me twice to submit a replacement form. Twice, I had found a reason not to. Below Hannah's name, in purple pencil, Sophie had added, Vivian Hale next door. You picked her up? The nurse said they would call child services if no authorized adult came before 9. My sister is authorized. They called Rachel 6 times. I checked my phone. 11 missed calls. The warehouse had swallowed every signal inside its concrete walls. I was on scene. I know. You should have called the station. I did. Dispatch would not interrupt an active rescue. So Sophie called you? From the nurse's phone. She knew your number? She memorized it from the note I gave you about the fence. 3 weeks earlier, Vivian had moved into the narrow blue house beside ours.
Yes.
She introduced herself by informing me that our shared fence leaned 6 degrees onto her property. I told her fences did not require decimal points. She told me liability did. I knew she ran Atlas Response Systems, the company bidding on the city's dispatch modernization contract. I also knew she worked late, drove herself, and spoke to children as if negotiating with a board. None of that explained why Sophie trusted her. Vivian handed me the nurse's instructions. She ate half a grilled cheese sandwich. She said the tomato soup was unacceptable.
She loved the grilled
That sounds
cheese,
like her.
but refused
She
to
also
touch the
said you
tomato
would
soup.
pretend not to be worried.
Yeah.
That sounds like her too. Vivian watched me fold the paper
He
into my
predicted
pocket.
my father would
Daniel,
pretend not to worry.
I did not ask her to write my
That
name.
sounds like him.
The use of my first name made me look up. I'm not suggesting you
I never
did.
asked B to
You are
write my
holding
name.
that card like it is evidence.
Cap-
The corner had bent beneath my thumb. My wife's name is on it. I can see that. Most people apologized when they saw Hannah's
No to
name.
nici poștă.
Vivian did not soften her voice or turn my loss into a lesson about gratitude. She simply let the fact remain what it was. I carried Sophie into the office behind the duty desk and laid her on the couch. She woke when I pulled the blanket over her. Dad?
Yes.
I'm here. Her fingers
She
closed
came.
around my sleeve.
Really?
Did Miss Vivian
Yes,
come?
she did.
She brought you to me.
It's
I
okay
told them
now.
she would. We'll update the card tomorrow.
The card will be
Sophie's eyes
updated
opened
soon.
wider. Are you taking her off? She was never supposed to
But
be
what
on
about
it.
character
Why?
C?
Emergency contacts are family. Mrs. Patel is Caleb's emergency person, and she's his neighbor. That is Caleb's family's decision.
What if
I decided.
there's no family
You're 8.
left?
I know. Vivian remained near
You
the
need to
doorway,
ask me before
far enough
adding
away to
any
give
new
us privacy.
grown-ups to your school
I lowered my
forms.
voice. You
I
cannot
know,
add
Dad.
adults to school forms
Sorry.
without asking me. What if something happens
You
to
know,
you?
Dad.
Sophie looked toward the apparatus bay, where my wet turnout coat hung
What
blackened
happens
at
if
one
something
shoulder.
happens to my...
What if the school calls and Aunt Rachel is working and you're inside a fire? I have people. You have
You wouldn't be able to
firefighters.
get me if you were
They can't
stuck
pick
too,
me up
right?
if they're with you.
I
I wanted to promise nothing
know,
would happen
honey.
to me. But Hannah had left for a grocery store on an ordinary afternoon and never come home. Sophie knew promises did not control roads, fires, or ringing phones. Vivian placed the red card on the desk. This belongs to
Decide
you,
only
she
after
said.
she has rested,
Whatever
please.
you decide,
I understand.
decide it when she's rested.
Thank you.
She took her coat from the chair. You're leaving? Sophie
Will you
asked.
come again if I call?
Yes. Will you
I
come
will.
if I call again?
Wait here.
Vivian looked at me before answering. If your
No.
father says I may be on the card, I will come. Sophie turned toward me. I should have said no. Instead, I stared at Hannah's name above Vivian's and heard my daughter's question. What if nobody comes? Vivian left without asking for thanks. After her card disappeared through the rain, I picked up the card to put it in my locker. That was when I noticed 4 words written on the back in Sophie's smallest, most careful print. Someone who will actually come. The next morning, Sophie woke on the station couch and asked for pancakes, as if she had not rearranged the structure of my life with a purple pencil. I drove her home after shift change. Rainwater still ran along the gutters, and the red emergency card stayed in the cup holder between us. You didn't answer me, she said. About what? Miss Vivian. I turned onto our street. You cannot choose emergency contacts by yourself. That isn't an answer. She had inherited Hannah's talent for finding the exact part of a sentence I wanted to avoid. At home, I put a skillet on the stove and called the school. The secretary explained that Vivian could remain on the card only if I signed a new authorization form. She used the phrase temporary, authorized adult twice, as if repetition made the decision smaller. I found the form in Sophie's backpack. Hannah's old information had already been crossed out by the school in blue ink. The line looked harsher than it needed to. Sophie climbed onto a stool and watched me hold the pen. You can take her off later, she said, if she stops coming. The pen paused above the signature box. People don't become family because they answer one phone call. I didn't say family. I signed. Temporary authorization. 30 days. Sophie ate 3 pancakes and did not mention that I had given myself an expiration date instead of making a decision. Rachel arrived before noon wearing hospital scrubs and an apology she delivered too fast. My phone was in a locker. We had a trauma case. I didn't see anything until 10. You were working. I'm still her emergency contact. I should have checked your schedule. Rachel set her keys on the counter. Daniel, stop doing that. Doing what? Taking the blame before anyone gives it to you. I scraped dried batter from the edge of the pan. She picked up the red card. Vivian Hale. She lives next door. She also runs the company trying to win the city dispatch contract. I know who she is. And now, she's on Sophie's school paperwork. For 30 days. Rachel's mouth tightened. You know how this looks. The phrase irritated me because it was usually used by people who wanted appearance to matter more than fact. She picked up a sick child when nobody else could. I'm grateful. I'm also telling you to be careful. Sophie entered with a blanket around her shoulders. Aunt Rachel, Miss Vivian didn't do anything wrong. Rachel crouched beside her. I didn't say she did. You made your worried face. I have several worried faces. That was the one you use when Dad says he's fine. Rachel glanced at me. I opened the refrigerator even though I did not need anything from it. The truth was that I had spent 4 years making sure Sophie never had to wonder who would come for her. I traded shifts, kept 3 backup plans, and carried my phone into the shower. I had memorized the drive from every station in the district to her school. Hannah had called me once on the afternoon she died. I was inside a burning duplex and never heard it. There was no final message. Only a missed call at 3:17 and a voicemail with 6 seconds of road noise before the line disconnected. After the funeral, people told me I could not have changed what happened. I thanked them until they stopped saying it. Then I built our life around never missing another call. Vivian returned Sophie's backpack that afternoon. She stood outside the screen door instead of knocking hard. I found this in my car. Sophie took the bag. Dad signed the form. Vivian's attention moved to me. Temporarily? I said. I didn't ask for an explanation. You were about to. No. I was about to ask whether she still has a fever. Sophie announced that she felt well enough to attend school Monday and unwell enough to avoid cleaning her room. Vivian accepted this diagnosis without argument. Before leaving, she nodded toward the loose fence panel between our yards. The storm made it worse. I'll fix it. I can hire someone. I know. I have a contractor who can be here in an hour. Vivian. She stopped. Not every problem needs a purchase order. Her jaw shifted. That was not what I was doing. It is what you do when you don't know how to wait. For a second, I expected her to tell me I had crossed a line. Instead, she placed both hands in her coat pockets. What should I do? Give me until Saturday. She nodded once. Saturday. I repaired the panel the next morning, while Sophie sat on the back steps with a juice box and supervised. Vivian came outside carrying 2 coffees. I did not purchase a solution, she said. I purchased coffee. That might still qualify. Then consider it a consulting fee. She handed 1 cup across the gap in the fence. No logo, no expensive tray, no assistant delivering it. Black coffee with 1 packet of sugar, the way I drank it. You remembered. You made it at the station while Sophie was sleeping. Most people noticed the uniform before they noticed anything else about me. Vivian had noticed the sugar. She leaned against the post while I reset the hinge. Sophie asked why Atlas made emergency software, if firefighters already had radios. Vivian did not give her a child-sized answer. Because radios tell people what is happening, she said. A good system helps them decide what to do next. What if the system is wrong? Then someone has to be brave enough to question it. Sophie considered that, then asked whether the software could remind her father to buy cereal. It could, Vivian said. But your father would refuse to install that feature. She's right, I said. By the end of the second week, Vivian's number remained on the card. She did not use it as permission to enter our life. She asked before stepping inside. She declined 2 dinner invitations because she was working, then appeared on Friday with soup after Sophie caught another cold. No tomato. She remembered. At the kitchen table, Sophie showed her a school assignment about family emergency plans. Vivian helped draw routes from the bedrooms to the front yard but left the box marked meeting person blank. That is your father's decision, she said. Sophie slid the pencil toward me. I wrote Rachel's name first, then Vivian's. Not family, not replacement. Someone who would come. The following Tuesday, an apartment fire kept my crew past school dismissal. Rachel was still at the hospital. Vivian collected Sophie under the temporary authorization and brought her to Station 7. They were at the duty table when we returned. Sophie doing math and Vivian answering emails beside her. Cruz pulled off his gloves and glanced from them to me. That your new emergency plan, Captain? 2 firefighters slowed behind him. Vivian closed her laptop. Sophie kept working, unaware that something had changed. I could have answered with the truth. Instead, I hung my coat, washed my hands, and let the question stand. The joke at Station 7 should have ended when Cruz went back to the engine bay. It did not. By lunch, 3 people had asked whether Atlas Response Systems planned to sponsor Sophie's school supplies. 1 firefighter left a plastic crown on my locker with a note that said, City ACCESESS. None of it was cruel enough to report. That was what made it useful. I threw the crown away, finished my reports, and told myself the attention would disappear when everyone found something newer to discuss. At 2:38 that afternoon, Chief Bell called me into his office. He had closed the blinds. That was never a good sign. A printed photograph lay on his desk. It showed Vivian kneeling beside Sophie during the department's Community Safety Day the previous month. Sophie's face had been blurred. Mine had not. Beneath the picture, someone had typed, Captain Mercer's private route into the city contract. I stayed standing. Where did that come from? Anonymous account. Sent to half the department and 2 members of the city procurement team. Bell slid a second page toward me. It was a presentation slide carrying the Atlas logo. The same photograph appeared on the left. On the right were statistics about emergency response delays, family notification failures, and communication gaps during active incidents. At the bottom, the families our systems are built to protect. My throat went dry. I've never seen this. You're in it. That's not what I said. Bell removed his glasses and pressed his fingers against the bridge of his nose. Did you give Atlas permission to use the photograph? No. Did Sophie? She's 8. Did Miss Hale discuss the bid with you? No. Did she ask about station procedures? She asked Sophie how radios worked. His eyes hardened slightly. Danielle, she did not ask me for operational information. Bell set his glasses down. I'm not accusing you. I am asking questions before the city asks them in a room where I cannot help you. A knock interrupted us. Vivian entered with a woman I recognized from Atlas press events, although neither of them wore company badges. Vivian carried a black folder. Her hair was pulled back too tightly, and she had the expression she used when a problem had already moved past anger into calculation. This image came from a city photographer, she said. The original release covered departmental educational materials, not Atlas marketing. Bell pointed to the slide. Then why is it in your deck? The woman beside her answered. Internal concept. Presentation. It was never distributed outside executive review. Vivian did not look at her. Leah. The woman stopped. Bell leaned back. Was Captain Mercer's photograph used with your knowledge? Vivian opened the folder, but did not take anything out. Yes. The word changed the temperature of the office. I turned toward her. You knew. I saw the deck before the board strategy session, and you left it in. Yes. Bell asked. Why? Vivian's fingers rested on the folder's edge. The slide was intended to show who bears the cost when emergency systems fail. No names were used. Sophie's face was obscured. That isn't permission, I said. No. She did not soften it. The lack of defense made the admission harder, not easier. Bell asked Leah to provide the original files, access logs, and every version of the presentation. Leah said they would cooperate, then began explaining how easy it was for internal materials to be misrepresented. Vivian closed the folder. Stop calling it misrepresentation until we know who had the file. Leah's mouth tightened. The photo is already circulating, which means language matters more, not less. Bell's desk phone rang. He ignored it. Then my own phone vibrated. Rachel had sent me a screenshot from a neighborhood group. The photograph was there too. Under it, someone had written, single dad or paid testimonial. My thumb stayed over the screen. Vivian saw enough of my face to understand. How far? Neighborhood group. Leah swore under her breath. Bell stood. I am notifying internal affairs and the city ethics office. Until they advise otherwise, Captain Mercer will have no involvement in procurement, related meetings, demonstrations, or tests. I never had involvement, I said. They will still document your removal. The distinction was important on paper, and useless everywhere else. Bell dismissed us but asked me to remain. Vivian paused at the door. Daniel, I should have asked. Which time? Her hand dropped from the handle. The photograph. You should have asked before my daughter became a sentence in your presentation. Leah stepped into the hallway, giving us privacy that arrived too late. Vivian faced me fully. You're right. I wanted an excuse I could reject. A polished explanation. Something that would let me stay angry without having to notice the shame in her voice. She gave me none. I saw the image, she said. It made the problem real to people who spend too much time looking at charts. So you used us to make them feel something. I told myself the slide was about the system. It had my child in it. I know. No. You know now. Bell shifted behind his desk, reminding us we were not alone. Vivian picked up the folder. I will have the image removed from every Atlas file. I will also provide the access records. That does not put it back where it was. No. She left. Bell waited until the hallway was quiet. You need to tell me everything. I have. Everything includes the parts you think do not count. I pulled out a chair. He asked when Vivian moved in how often she had been inside my house, whether she had ever watched Sophie, whether I had accepted gifts, meals, transportation, favors, or money. Coffee counted as a gift under the city ethics policy if someone wanted it to. So did soup. So did the fence contractor Vivian had offered but never hired. I answered every question. By the time I left, the shift had changed. Men who usually shouted across the bay lowered their voices when I passed. Crews met me beside my locker. I was kidding earlier. The joke was the smallest part. I didn't send anything. I believe you. He rubbed the back of his neck. My wife saw the neighborhood post. There was nothing useful to say. I changed clothes and drove to Sophie's school. The receptionist asked me to wait in the office. Principal Ames arrived holding a clear plastic sleeve. Inside was the red emergency card. "We received a request for a copy this morning," she said. "From who?" "The city ethics office. We verified the request before sending it." She placed a printed scan beside the original. Vivian's name was boxed in red on the copy. Sophie's words on the back were missing. "Someone who will actually come." "The back wasn't included," I said. Principal Ames turned the scan over. "Blank. I scanned both sides myself," she said. "The file we sent included them." My phone rang before I could answer. Unknown number. A man identified himself as an investigator from the city attorney's office. He asked whether I could appear Monday morning for a preliminary ethics interview. Then an email arrived while he was still speaking. Notice of formal review. The first paragraph named me Vivian, Atlas Response Systems, and the city dispatch contract. The second described a potential exchange of access for personal benefit. An attachment explained that every named party would receive the complete evidence packet through restricted counsel access. The card should have remained inside Atlas's legal review folder. It was never supposed to enter the company's board repository. I stopped reading there. Through the office window, Sophie crossed the playground with her class. She saw me, smiled, and lifted one hand. The original card remained between my fingers. Hannah's name showed faintly beneath the red evidence box around Vivian's. Whoever had built the accusation had not only used the woman standing beside us now, they had used the one we had buried. The ethics interview lasted 90 minutes and produced no accusation anyone would say plainly. The investigator asked whether Vivian had requested station records, discussed response times, or given me gifts. I answered until every ordinary thing in our lives sounded like a transaction. 3 days later, Chief Bell told me the Firefighters Children Fund Gala would proceed as scheduled. "You're still presenting the scholarship awards. With an active review, you haven't been charged. That isn't the same as being trusted." Bell capped his pen. 20 children earned scholarships. Do not let an anonymous complaint take that from them. He was right. The gala filled the ballroom of the Charleston Harbor Hotel with donors, city council members, contractors, reporters, firefighters, and their families. Sophie wore a blue dress Hannah had before she died. Rachel had altered the hem that afternoon. "You can leave after the awards," Rachel said near the entrance. "I'm not leaving her here while people talk about us." "They're already talking." Vivian arrived with Atlas's general counsel. She wore no company pin and no jewelry except a watch. Grant Keller entered 5 minutes later beside executives from Meridian Civic Technologies, Atlas's chief rival for the dispatch contract. Grant had once been engaged to Vivian. His investment fund still controlled an Atlas board seat even while financing Meridian's challenge for the city contract. Vivian called it a conflict. Grant called it shareholder oversight. He crossed the ballroom greeting people as though the event belonged to him. When he crouched beside Sophie, his smile was careful. "I've heard you're very brave." "From who?" she asked. "Your father." "My dad doesn't know you." Grant straightened. "Children are wonderfully direct. So are adults," Vivian said behind him. "When they have nothing to hide." His expression tightened, then smoothed. "This must be difficult for everyone." At our table, one firefighter's wife stopped speaking when I sat down. A council aide moved her place card 2 seats away from mine. Neither action was dramatic enough to challenge, but Sophie noticed both. "Did we do something?" she whispered. "No." "Then why is everybody acting careful?" I straightened her napkin and told her grown-ups sometimes confused caution with kindness. She accepted the answer only because the program lights dimmed before she could ask another question. Across the ballroom, Vivian's chair remained empty until the last possible moment. When she finally sat, she did not turn toward me. The distance had been planned by lawyers, but it still looked like a choice. The event began at 7. Dinner arrived. The early speeches focused on burn survivors, scholarships, and equipment funds. I presented 2 awards without losing my place. Then the Master of Ceremonies introduced Grant. His donation to a children's resilience program bought him 7 minutes at the microphone. The hotel technicians had approved his presentation that afternoon, but the accusation slide had been inserted after their final check. Grant began with public trust. No names, no direct accusation. He spoke about contractors, vulnerable families, and access. The fourth time he used that word. The photograph filled the screen. The caption from the anonymous post appeared beneath it. He said nobody questioned my service. The concern, he explained, was whether a vulnerable child had become a route into a public bid. Vulnerable. Not grieving, not frightened, not 8 years old. A reporter asked whether Vivian had entered Sophie's life before or after Atlas joined the bidding process. Every face turned toward me. My hand closed around the podium, and the apology I had used for years rose to meet them. Before I could say it, Sophie crossed the ballroom with the red emergency card. I wrote her name. Grant came down one step. "Of course you did, sweetheart." His gaze dropped past Vivian's name to the lower edge of the card, where the back showed through the clear sleeve. At the time, I mistook the recognition in his face for confidence. Sophie explained that she had called Vivian because I was inside a fire and Vivian had come. Grant agreed that children deserved adults who made them feel safe, then warned that adults must never use that trust for business. He had not contradicted Sophie. He had changed the meaning of what she said. Cruz stood rigid near the wall. Belle watched the screen instead of Grant. Rachel was already moving toward Sophie. Then my daughter turned to me. "Dad, did you let Miss Vivian use us because we needed money?" The microphone carried the question across the ballroom. Every answer seemed to offer Grant another version of us. Vivian stepped beyond her attorney's hand. "Daniel, do not apologize for something you did not do." Grant's composure cracked for half a second. He had expected me to apologize. Phones rose across the ballroom. Belle crossed the floor and ordered the screen shut down. The photograph disappeared, leaving a blank blue rectangle above the stage. The damage remained. Rachel reached Sophie first. My daughter allowed herself to be held, but kept watching me. Grant returned to the microphone. "This is precisely why safeguards matter." Vivian faced him. "You arranged a public accusation at a children's fundraiser. I presented a governance concern. You put an 8-year-old on a screen. You put her in a corporate presentation." The answer landed because it was true. Vivian's shoulders went rigid. Grant smiled without warmth. "Transparency is painful." Belle took the microphone. "The program is suspended." Conversation broke across the ballroom. Reporters crowded the aisle. Leah appeared beside Vivian with a phone already at her ear. Rachel led Sophie toward the exit. I followed, but Belle caught my sleeve. "Internal Affairs will contact you tonight." "For what?" That exchange was recorded from 6 angles. The city manager has already called. Across the ballroom, Vivian stood inside a circle of attorneys and board members. She met my eyes but did not come closer. My phone vibrated. "Unknown number. Sign the separation statement, and this ends before your daughter gets hurt again." Attached was a draft carrying the city attorney's letterhead. The first sentence said Vivian Hale had entered Sophie's life more quickly than I considered appropriate. Sophie waited in the hallway, still clutching the card. She had heard enough adults turn her choices into evidence. Now someone was asking me to help them do it. The storm reached Charleston the night after the gala. By 6, rain had turned the streets silver. Wind pushed trash cans across driveways and bent the live oaks until their branches scraped the roofs. Sophie stayed with Rachel. The school had received calls from reporters, and a camera crew waited across from our house until Chief Bell sent a patrol car by. Rachel's apartment had underground parking and no shared fence with a CEO under investigation. At Rachel's door, Sophie asked whether Vivian was in trouble because of us. "Adults are sorting it out." "That means yes. It means you don't need to carry it." She studied my face. "You always say that when you're carrying it." Rachel opened the door before I could answer. On the drive home, the city attorney's draft statement waited in my email. I did not open it. Branches covered half our street. Vivian's porch light blinked twice and died. Her house had storm shutters on every window, except the wide kitchen pane facing the side yard. Wahi pane. One hinge had torn loose, and the metal panel struck the siding whenever the wind changed. Vivian stood on a ladder trying to hold it with one hand and work a drill with the other. I crossed the yard. "Get down. I have it. The ladder is sinking." A gust shoved the shutter outward. The drill slipped from her hand. I caught the ladder before it tipped. "Vivian." She climbed down without arguing. I reset the ladder against the brick and took the drill. "You should be inside. So should you. My daughter isn't in my house." Her expression tightened. "Because of last night? Because strangers know where we live." The wind swallowed her answer. I climbed. The upper hinge had twisted. I braced the panel against my shoulder and drove a new screw through the bracket. The drill bit caught, jumped, and tore across the base of my thumb. Blood mixed with rainwater before I reached the ground. Vivian grabbed my wrist. Inside. It's a cut. Inside, Daniel. Her kitchen went dark as we entered. Vivian found a flashlight, set it upright in a drinking glass, and filled the sink before the water pressure failed. Sit. I sat because refusing would have turned a small injury into another argument. She rinsed the cut, then opened a first aid kit organized into labeled compartments. You alphabetized bandages? They are grouped by function. That is not a denial. She pressed gauze to my palm. Her hands were steady. Mine were not. The ballroom returned in pieces. Sophie lifting the card. Grant calling her sweetheart. 600 people hearing my daughter ask whether I had sold us. Vivian taped the gauze in place. Too tight? No. You're lying. It's fine. That is a different lie. I pulled my hand back. Rain hammered the glass. The shutter struck the wall outside, slower now that one hinge held. Vivian removed her watch and placed it beside the sink. Leah says the clip has passed 2 million views. The number was already everywhere. Atlas's municipal partners paused 3 contracts. The city froze the bid. Grant called an emergency board meeting? Yes. I flexed my fingers beneath the bandage. Did he put the photograph on that screen? I cannot prove it. But you know. I know how he works. Without the watch, the suit jacket, and the people waiting for her decisions, she seemed less protected. What did he mean when he said you put Sophie in a corporate presentation? Vivian lowered her eyes to the first aid kit. We discussed the slide. We discussed whether you approved it, not why. Her thumb pressed the lid shut. The original deck was failing. The board saw response times as technical problems. Numbers. They understood delay, but not who waited inside it. So you gave them my daughter. I gave them an image. You knew her name. Yes. You knew Hannah had died. Yes. You knew why Sophie was afraid nobody would answer. Vivian's face lost the careful neutrality she wore in public. Yes. I moved to the other side of the table. You saw us, then turned what you saw into material. I told myself it was internal. You told yourself her face was blurred. Yes. You told yourself the story was bigger than the people in it. She swallowed. Yes. No lawyer's wording. No strategic distinction. She had used us because our life made her argument stronger. Vivian pulled her Atlas identification card from inside her jacket and set it beside the watch. I spent years trying to build a system that makes sure a missed call does not become a catastrophe. Then I met you and Sophie, and suddenly the work had faces. That did not make those faces yours. No. Why didn't you ask? Because I thought you would say no. The honesty struck harder than an excuse. And you decided the work mattered more. I decided I knew what the image meant. You decided for me. Yes. The shutter hit the siding again. I took the screwdriver from the counter. Vivian stepped between me and the door. You're bleeding through the bandage. I need to finish the hinge. You need to stop moving long enough to admit what this is doing to you. Anger rose because the statement was true. My daughter thinks I traded her trust for money. My chief has to decide whether I'm a liability. Men I've worked beside for 16 years stop talking when I enter a room. And the woman who says she sees us used our worst day to improve a sales pitch. I know. Stop saying that. What do you want me to say? That you didn't. I cannot. Water moved under the back door in a thin line. Vivian knelt and pressed a towel against it. I did not stay silent, only because the slide seemed harmless, she said. Part of me liked what it did to the room. They listened. They finally understood why the system mattered. She pushed another towel into the gap. And part of me liked that something in my life felt real enough to use. That confession hurt differently, not because she had wanted us, because she had wanted what we made her appear to be. I crouched to move the second towel. Our hands met on the wet tile. Neither of us pulled away immediately. Her face was close. The storm had loosened strands of hair around her cheek. The air narrowed until I could feel her breath. Wanting her did not erase what she had done. It made the boundary necessary. I stood. Not tonight. Vivian remained by the door. Danielle, not while my daughter is evidence, and your company is on trial. She rose slowly. I am not asking you to forgive me. Good. I am asking what happens next. You tell the truth. All of it. Even the part that makes Grant's version easier to believe. Her jaw tightened, but she nodded. And us? She asked. If anything happens between us, it cannot begin with you using our life to prove you have one. Pain crossed her face. She accepted it without turning away. Outside, the damaged shutter struck once more. Vivian picked up the drill. I'll hold the ladder. You're not climbing. I know. She opened the back door and waited while I stepped into the rain. For once, she did not try to solve the whole problem. She stood below me, kept both hands on the ladder, and took responsibility for making sure I did not fall. Internal Affairs suspended me at 8:10 Monday morning. They called it administrative leave, which sounded temporary until Chief Bell asked for my station badge. "This is not a finding," he said. "I understand the order. It means you stay off department property unless council requests you." His hand remained open between us. The badge had been clipped to my belt for 16 years. I removed it and set it in his palm. Bell sealed it in an envelope. "You'll keep base salary for 30 days. Command pay stops today. Overtime is frozen. Mortgage, Sophie's school fees, Hannah's remaining medical debt, the roof repair. I can manage." That sentence is not a financial plan. It's the one I have. My locker stood 20 feet away, but Cruz packed it because the suspension order barred me from the apparatus bay. He carried out a box with 2 uniforms, Sophie's drawings, and the mug my crew gave me when I made captain. Outside, a reporter waited near the parking lot entrance. Cruz blocked the camera while loading the box into my truck. "I'm sorry," he said. "For the joke? For laughing before I knew who was listening." That was closer to responsibility than most apologies. At Sophie's school, Principal Ames placed the red emergency card on her desk inside a clear sleeve. "We removed Miss Hale from the authorized pickup list until the review is complete." Did the district require that? Our council recommended it. Vivian has never endangered Sophie. I did not say she had. You made the decision anyway. A fresh emergency form waited beneath the sleeve. The first contact line was blank. I left it that way. Rachel brought Sophie home after dinner. My daughter went directly to the kitchen drawer where I kept school papers. The card is gone. The school made a temporary change. Did Miss Vivian do something bad? She made a mistake. So did I. No. I wrote her name. That was not the mistake. Sophie stared at the empty line. "Are you going back to work tomorrow?" "Not tomorrow." "Because of her?" "Because adults need to check what happened." She pushed the form away. "Adults keep checking me." She took her backpack upstairs before I could answer. Rachel waited until the bedroom door closed. She heard 2 nurses talking about the video. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you were being suspended." "You still tell me. You were handling enough. You do not get to decide what I can handle." The sentence sounded familiar because I had used the same logic on everyone else. Rachel heard it too. "Fair. Then you should know a city investigator called me." "What did you say?" "That Vivian had been helping. That you worried Sophie was getting attached too quickly." "I said that to you in private." "He asked whether you had concerns, and you gave him words he can separate from the reason I said them." "I told the truth." "You told part of it." Rachel reached for her keys. "You are angry at the wrong person. I have enough anger for more than one." She left without saying goodnight. At 9, Vivian knocked. She stayed on the porch, holding the spare key I had given her for storm emergencies. Atlas's general counsel waited in a car at the curb. "I recused myself from the city bid," she said. "Atlas requested an independent audit of the deck, access logs, and every communication connected to your family." "What did the board do?" "Froze my voting authority on municipal contracts." "Grant requested temporary executive oversight." "Did he get it?" "Not yet." She offered me the key. "I thought you should have this back." I took it. The metal was warm from her hand. "School removed you from the card." "I expected that." Sophie did not. Vivian glanced toward the upstairs window. "Can I speak to her?" "Not tonight." She nodded. "The boundary hurt both of us," which did not make it wrong. "My attorney found counsel for you," she said. "Atlas will cover the fees." "No. Daniel, this could become a termination case." "I know. You cannot fight the city with a union representative and a mortgage calculator. I'm not taking money from your company while they accuse me of benefiting from you. Then let me pay personally. That is worse. I am trying to keep you from losing your career. And I am trying to stop every act of care between us from becoming a receipt." Vivian stepped back. "What do you need?" "A lawyer I choose. Time with my daughter. No private meetings until the investigation is over." Her face went still. "Because you do not trust me?" "Because I do. And right now that trust can be used against both of us." That sounds like Grant's logic. No, Grant wants distance to prove his story. I want distance so we stop making decisions in the wreckage he created. And if the investigation lasts months, then it lasts months. Daniel, I will not turn you into somewhere I hide because I lost my station. And I will not let you turn us into proof that your life is real. She accepted the words without defending herself. If anything happens between us, it happens after we can choose it without a lawyer translating it. A porch light flickered across the street. Vivian glanced toward the car. I told the audit team why I approved the photograph. All of it. All of it. What will that cost? Possibly the contract. Possibly my position. The answer did not sound brave. It sounded expensive. Then we both pay for our own choices, I said. She nodded once. Good night, Daniel. The following week reduced my life to appointments. Union council, city ethics, department payroll. A bank officer who explained suspended command pay did not qualify as hardship until I missed a payment. The school counselor recommended Sophie stay with Rachel during interviews and media activity. My daughter packed her blue overnight bag without complaint. That frightened me more than tears would have. At the door, she handed me a drawing of Station 7. My engine was outside. I was not in it. Where am I? I asked. At home, she said, waiting. Rachel took her downstairs. On Friday, my union attorney placed a 3-page statement on the kitchen table. If you sign, Internal Affairs can recommend reassignment instead of termination. What reassignment? Training division. No command authority until the ethics review closes. The statement confirmed I had not shared confidential information or accepted money. The second page described Vivian's involvement with Sophie. One sentence was underlined. Miss Hale became involved in my daughter's routine more quickly than I considered appropriate. That is not what happened. You expressed concern to your sister. I was afraid Sophie would rely on someone who might leave. That is not the same as saying Vivian acted inappropriately. The sentence creates distance. It creates a lie. It creates a path back to work. He slid a pen across the table. If you refuse, the city can argue you are protecting a contractor over your department. The pen stopped beside my bandaged hand. 30 days of salary, no command pay. A daughter sleeping somewhere else. An empty line on an emergency form. All I had to do was sign a sentence that moved the blame away from me. And put it on Vivian. The pen stayed beside my hand for 11 minutes. My union attorney checked his watch twice and said nothing. At 10:43, the school called. Sophie had refused to leave the counselor's office after another parent asked whether Vivian had paid for her backpack. Principal Ames wanted permission to send her home with Rachel. I gave it. Then payroll emailed a revised benefits notice. If the suspension became termination, our family health coverage would end on the last day of the month. The statement remained open on the table. Miss Hale became involved in my daughter's routine more quickly than I considered appropriate. It was not a direct accusation. That was how lies entered official records. Not through dramatic language, but through a sentence cautious enough to survive review. If I sign, I return to training? I asked. Pending approval. And the department stops treating me as part of the contract investigation? They separate your conduct from hers. Her conduct. 2 words that turned Vivian into the source of the problem. I thought of Sophie sitting in a counselor's office. I thought of the mortgage, insurance, and the empty space where my badge had been. Then I signed. My attorney gathered the pages before the ink had dried. You made the practical choice. I did not answer. By 4 that afternoon, the statement was no longer private. A local news alert appeared on my phone. Suspended fire captain admits concern over CEO's access to daughter. The article quoted only the sentence about Vivian. It did not include my denial of sharing information, accepting money, or discussing the bid. Grant gave the reporter a statement. Captain Mercer's own words confirm why safeguards were necessary. I called my attorney. He sounded genuinely surprised, which did not make me trust him more. That document was restricted. Grant has it. We don't know that he released it. He quoted it. Do not make public accusations. The call ended with instructions to remain silent. Silence had been the strategy every time someone else wanted control of my story. Across the street, Vivian's house was dark. Her car arrived after 7. Leah drove. 2 reporters followed and stopped at the curb when she opened the garage. I crossed my porch before remembering the boundary I had set. Vivian saw me from her driveway. She did not invite me closer. You signed it, she said. The rain had stopped, but water still fell from the trees. I signed a path back to work. You signed that I entered Sophie's life inappropriately. That is not the word I used. It is the word Grant gave the sentence, and you knew he could. I was trying to separate you from the department investigation. You did not separate me. You handed him your credibility. Her voice never rose. That made each word cleaner. I have a daughter to support. That responsibility is yours. My insurance was at risk. The risk was real. The sentence was still yours. I could not lose everything to prove a sentence was unfair. Vivian closed the car door. You asked me to tell the truth even when it cost my company. Then you signed something untrue when the price reached your house. The accusation landed because I had earned it. I thought distance would protect you. No. You decided I should absorb the blame because that felt safer than letting me choose the cost. Leah remained behind the wheel, staring forward. Vivian stepped toward the garage. I used your family without asking. I admitted it. You do not get to answer that mistake by writing a worse version of me into a public record. I did not know it would leak. You knew the sentence existed. She went inside and closed the door. Rachel brought Sophie home the next morning. My daughter carried the red emergency card inside a plastic folder. Why do you have that? I asked Mrs. Ames for it. She sat at the kitchen table and took out a black marker. What are you doing? Fixing it. She drew one line through Vivian's name. The marker squeaked against the card. Stop. Sophie's hand froze. You said she came too fast. I signed words I should not have signed. Were they true? No. Then why did you sign them? Because I needed work. Because I was afraid. Because adults could turn cowardice into responsibility if the form had enough official language. I thought it would make things easier. For who? I had no answer. That did not sound like an excuse. Her eyes filled, but she refused to blink. If I never wrote her name, none of this happens. That is not true. The picture was because she knew us. The card was because I called her. The gala was because I went on stage. Sophie, Grant did those things, but I gave him stuff to use. She pushed the card across the table. Vivian's name remained visible beneath the black line. I don't want an emergency person anymore. She went upstairs. I sat with the card until Rachel took the chair opposite me. You should have told Vivian before you signed. I know. You should have told me not to answer the investigator without counsel. I should not have needed to. Rachel flinched. The words came out sharper than I intended, but I did not take them back. She had given them part of a private fear. I had given them an official sentence. Neither of us could claim innocence because Grant had done worse. At noon, Chief Bell called. The training reassignment is off the table. Why? Public pressure. The commissioner wants a resignation before the council hearing. A resignation or termination. If you resign, you keep accrued leave and 6 months of health coverage. The offer targeted every reason I had signed. Bell's voice lowered. I am not telling you what to do. I am telling you what they will offer. A resignation document arrived 20 minutes later. I printed it. The signature line waited beneath a paragraph stating that my departure would protect public confidence in the department. I placed the red card beside it. One signature had already hurt Vivian. A second could end the pressure on Sophie. My hand reached for the pen. The doorbell rang. An Atlas security auditor stood outside with Leah. He introduced himself as Marcus Dean and held a laptop bag under one arm. Miss Hale authorized us to provide this directly to you and your counsel. I thought we were not supposed to communicate. She is not here. Leah placed a printed email on the porch rail. Grant had sent it to an outside crisis consultant 2 days before my statement became public. The original card will not matter once Mercer's statement is public. Keep the focus on access, not the child's handwriting. I read it again. Only the school, the ethics office, Vivian, and I knew the original card contained handwriting on the back. Grant had publicly behaved as if he had seen only the cropped scan. Marcus opened his laptop. His board account downloaded the unredacted card and the Atlas slide for. Can you prove he sent them? We can prove his account accessed them. The consultant's production may establish the rest. My resignation lay inside on the table. Leah glanced past me and saw it. Were you going to sign? Yes. She did not tell me I would have regretted it. She said, Then he understood you correctly. That was worse. I returned to the kitchen, picked up the resignation, and tore it through the signature line. Grant had not uncovered a conflict. He had built one, and he had counted on me helping him finish it. The council chamber had no windows. At 9 Monday morning, every chair behind me was filled. Firefighters sat on one side of the aisle. Atlas executives sat on the other. Reporters occupied the back row with laptops already open. The hearing combined 3 matters that had become impossible to separate. My conduct review, the city's procurement investigation, and Atlas's complaint against Grant Keller for unauthorized access to board files. Chief Bell sat beside the fire commissioner. Vivian sat 6 rows behind her attorneys. She had not contacted me before the hearing. The distance was not punishment. It was the boundary we had agreed to before I broke it. Grant sat across the chamber with counsel from Meridian Civic Technologies. A yellow legal pad waited beneath his hand. Councilwoman Renee Foster opened the hearing. "This is not a trial," she said. "It is a public determination of whether city employees, contractors, or interested parties compromise the integrity of a public bid." The city presented my statement first. A clerk read the sentence aloud. "Miss Hale became involved in my daughter's routine more quickly than I considered appropriate." Hearing it in another person's voice removed every excuse I had attached to it. Foster turned toward me. "Captain Mercer, did you write that sentence?" "No." "Did you sign it?" "Yes." "Was it true?" My union attorney had advised me to say the wording was open to interpretation. It was not true in the way I knew it would be used. The commissioner leaned toward his microphone. "That is not an answer. I worried that my daughter would become attached to someone who might leave. I did not believe Miss Hale manipulated her, acted inappropriately, or sought access to me through her. Then why sign? Because I was afraid of losing health insurance. Because I wanted my badge back. Because I knew how to endure blame better than uncertainty. The city offered me a path back to work if I helped create distance between myself and Vivian Hale." A murmur moved behind me. Foster asked, "Were you instructed to lie?" "No." The sentence was written carefully enough that nobody had to call it a lie. Grant's pen stopped. I knew what it would suggest. I signed it anyway. That was my decision, and it was wrong. The admission did not feel like relief. It felt like holding my hand against a hot surface. The city attorney asked whether I loved Vivian. "Yes." Cameras. Rose. "Did you discuss the bid?" "No." "Provide station data?" "No." "Accept anything of financial value?" "No." He displayed the photograph from Atlas's presentation. "Miss Hale used your family and corporate material without permission." "Yes." "And you ask this committee to believe your judgment was not compromised." "I am not asking you to believe I made no mistakes. I am asking you to distinguish our mistakes from the scheme Grant Keller built around them." Grant's attorney objected. Foster allowed the answer to remain. Vivian testified next. She admitted approving the slide and did not hide behind Leah, the communications team, or Sophie's blurred face. "I used a real family to make my work feel urgent," she said. "I did not obtain consent. Atlas should lose any advantage that presentation created." Her board counsel asked whether she still wanted the city contract. "Not through this process. Atlas should withdraw and rebid only after an independent review." A board member whispered sharply behind her. Vivian continued, "My mistake does not prove Captain Mercer gave us access. It proves I crossed a boundary, because I believed a good purpose excused me from asking." She returned to her seat without turning toward me. She had not come as my defense or my reward. She had come to tell the part of the truth that belonged to her. Marcus Dean, the Atlas security auditor, presented the access logs. Grant's board account had downloaded 3 files 48 hours before the anonymous complaint. The original pitch deck, the full 2-sided scan of Sophie's emergency card, and an executive calendar showing Vivian's attendance at the community event. Grant's attorney said the credentials could have been compromised. Marcus produced device records tying the download to Grant's personal laptop. Then he displayed the email to the crisis consultant. "The original card will not matter once Mercer's statement is public. Keep the focus on access, not the child's handwriting." Foster turned to Grant. "Did you see the original card?" "I saw a version in the board repository." "The version shown at the gala?" "Yes." "The gala image contained only the front." Grant answered too quickly. The unredacted version was already in the board folder. Nobody moved. Foster's eyes narrowed. No witnesses testified that the board copy was unredacted. Grant's fingers tightened around his pen. His attorney touched his sleeve, but Grant pulled away. It was obvious there had to be another version. Why? Because the child claimed she wrote an explanation. She made that statement after the anonymous complaint was filed. Grant's smile arrived late. "This is becoming theatrical." "No," I said. "It became theatrical when you put my daughter on a ballroom screen." His attorney objected again. Foster gave me one final statement. I stood without notes. I made it easier for Grant to do this. I stayed quiet when coworkers turned my daughter into a joke. I signed a sentence I knew would hurt Vivian, because I wanted the consequences to land somewhere other than my house. I do not get to call myself only a victim. The commissioner watched me without expression, but Grant did not expose a hidden deal. There was no deal. He took Vivian's real mistake, my real fear, and my daughter's real trust, then arranged them until they looked like corruption. Grant shook his head. You are protecting a woman who used your child. I am telling the truth about a woman who used a photograph and admitted it. You needed her guilty of more, so you removed my daughter's handwriting and supplied the rest. Grant turned toward Vivian. You are throwing away a company for a fireman and his child. The words escaped before his attorney could stop him. Vivian did not answer. Grant had stopped speaking about governance, safeguards, or public trust. He was speaking about ownership. I faced the committee. You did not uncover our story. You manufactured one and waited for my daughter to live inside it. The chamber stayed still. I am not asking you to restore my rank because I suffered. I signed a false sentence, and the department has the right to discipline me. I am asking that the official records say what happened. My daughter chose someone she trusted. Vivian crossed a boundary. I failed to defend the truth when defending it became expensive. And Grant Keller turned all 3 facts into a lie. The committee recessed. When it returned, Atlas was removed from the current bid and permitted to reapply only after independent oversight. The ethics office cleared me of exchanging access or information for personal benefit, but referred my signed statement back to the department for discipline. Grant was suspended from Atlas's audit committee, pending a criminal review of the document access and anonymous filing. The fire commissioner did not return my badge. Outside, reporters crowded the steps. Vivian left through a separate door with her attorneys. I did not follow her. Chief Bell met me beneath the stone awning and held out the clear sleeve containing Sophie's red card. The committee released the original. The black line Sophie had drawn through Vivian's name was still there. So were the 4 words on the back. Someone who will actually come. Bell let go of the sleeve. Go home, Daniel. For once, going home did not mean surrendering the story. It meant I finally had to tell my daughter the whole truth. 3 months later, my badge came back in a white envelope, not my captain's shield. A standard department badge, the kind I had worn before command, with an assignment notice to training division and a 6-month review attached. Chief Bell handed it to me across his desk. You can refuse. And do what? That is not my decision. The metal felt lighter than the badge he had taken, and heavier than anything I had carried into a fire. Do I return to Station 7? Not yet. He did not pretend the discipline was unfair. I had signed a statement I knew would be misused. Grant's fraud did not erase my choice. I clipped the badge to my belt. Then I started training. Bell nodded. Some firefighters shook my hand when I returned. Others found reasons to be elsewhere. Cruz left my old mug on the training desk, with a new label taped over Captain. It read Daniel. That was enough. Atlas withdrew from the city contract and lost 2 municipal clients before the independent review ended. Vivian remained CEO, but the board appointed an outside compliance officer and removed her authority to approve community images alone. Grant resigned from the Atlas board before the directors could vote to remove him. The state investigation into the document access was still open. His attorneys called the email a misunderstanding and the altered card an unauthorized communication strategy. Men like Grant rarely disappeared when the truth arrived. They changed vocabulary. Rachel and I spoke because Sophie needed us to, then because not speaking had become another way of letting Grant keep something. Her apology came in my kitchen. I was afraid Vivian would leave, she said. I wanted to prove I had seen the danger before you did. You gave them a private fear. I know. I used one too. Accepted did not mean erased. We started there. Sophie saw the school counselor every Thursday. She no longer asked whether the investigation was her fault, but she stopped writing people's names in permanent ink. Vivian did not come back into our life all at once. The first time we had dinner again, she stood on the porch and waited until Sophie invited her inside. She brought no gift. She asked before helping with homework. When Sophie complained about a science project, Vivian began offering a solution, caught herself, and said, "Do you want help or do you want me to listen?" "Listen first," Sophie said. Vivian sat down. I watched from the stove while my daughter explained why a model bridge could be emotionally hostile. Vivian listened for 9 full minutes. It may have been the hardest work I ever saw her do. We did not call those dinners dates. Not at first. Vivian and I met for coffee in public places, where neither of us could confuse privacy with permission. We talked about Grant, the hearing, Hannah, the statement I had signed, and the photograph she had approved. She did not ask me to stop being angry. I did not ask her to prove she would stay. One evening, after Sophie had gone upstairs, Vivian returned the spare key. "You already gave this back," I said. "This is a new one. You changed the lock after the reporters came." I turned the key over in my palm. Why do you have it? You gave it to me last week when the plumber needed access. I forgot. I didn't. She waited. I placed the key on the hook beside the kitchen door instead of taking it from her. Leave it there. That was not forgiveness. It was not nothing. The new emergency form arrived on a Monday in a yellow school envelope. Sophie laid it between us at breakfast. The first line listed me. The second listed Rachel. The third was blank. Hannah's name appeared in the family history section with a small box beside deceased parent. The school had finally found a place for her that did not require pretending she could answer a phone. Sophie held the purple pencil but did not write. Can Vivian go there? I could have answered for both of them. That had been one of my oldest mistakes, calling control protection when I was frightened by another person's choice. After this time, Vivian came over that evening. Sophie placed the form on the table. Do you want to be my emergency person? Vivian did not answer quickly. What would that mean to you? That if Dad and Aunt Rachel can't come, you will. What does it not mean? Sophie frowned. That you're my mom. Vivian's hand rested beside the pencil. I would never ask to be. Mom is still Mom, Sophie said. You can be Vivian. I can do that. She wrote her name on the third line. Authorized adult, Vivian Hale. No borrowed title. No claim to a place that belonged to someone else. On the back, Sophie started to write something, stopped, and handed the pencil to Vivian. You write it. Vivian considered the empty space. Then she printed 4 words. Call me. I will answer. The old card remained in my kitchen drawer, folded inside its clear evidence sleeve. Sophie's black line still crossed Vivian's name. Her original words were still visible on the back. Someone who will actually come. I never decided whether keeping it meant I was still afraid or finally brave enough to remember. Maybe it meant both. A week later, the school called during my first live training exercise. The phone vibrated against my chest. For 1 second, the drill yard vanished. I was back inside a burning duplex, unable to hear Hannah's last call. Then I was in the gala again, watching Sophie hold up a card, while 600 strangers decided what her trust meant. I answered too fast. Is she hurt? The secretary paused. No, Mr. Mercer. Sophie left her blue jacket. She asked whether someone could bring it before soccer practice. My free hand gripped the edge of the training table. I'll handle it. When I ended the call, Vivian was waiting near the visitor gate. She had come to return a folder Sophie left in her car. She saw my face, but did not tell me everything was fine. She set the folder down and placed her hand on the table beside mine. Not over it. Beside it. The choice stayed with me. I turned my hand and took hers. Some people do not destroy you by shouting. They write a version of you others can believe. And sometimes the person who helps you survive does not fix your life. They simply refuse to tell your story for you. If this stayed with you, tell me. Have you ever fought for the truth of your own life? For more stories about dignity, second chances, and being truly seen, like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.